with him, and in the first case they handed him the flowers and accepted him, while in the second case they fought him. Dr. F. Dan Ugerstich, der Germanischen und Romanischen Volker, Berlin, 1881, BD 1st, 96. Now they accepted the king's overlords official whom they could not refuse, but they maintained the folkmote's jurisdiction and themselves nominated 6, 7 or 12 judges who acted with the law's judge in the presence of the folkmote as arbiters and sentence finders. In most cases the official had nothing left to him but to confirm the sentence and to levy the customary threat. This precious right of self-jurisdiction, which at that time meant self-administration and self-legislation, had been maintained through all the struggles, and even the lawyers by whom Karl the Great was surrounded could not abolish it. They were bound to confirm it. At the same time, in all matters concerning the community's domain, the folkmote retained its supremacy and (as shown by Morea) often claimed submission from the lord himself. In land tenure matters, no growth of feudalism could break this resistance. The village community kept its ground, and when in the 9th and 10th centuries the invasions of the Normans, the Arabs and the Ugrians had demonstrated that military scholae were of little value for protecting the land, a general movement began all over Europe for fortifying the villages with stone walls and citadels. Thousands of fortified centres were then built by the energies of the village communities, and once they had built their walls, once a common interest had been created in this new sanctuary, the town walls, they soon understood that they could henceforward resist the encroachments of their inner enemies, the lords, as well as the invasions of foreigners. A new life of freedom began to develop within the fortified enclosures. The medieval city was born. If I thus follow the views long since advocated by Morea (Geschichte der Stadtverfassung in Deutschland, Erlangen, 1869), it is because he has fully proved the uninterrupted evolution from the village community to the medieval city, and that his views alone can explain the universality of the communal movement. Savigny and H. Horn and their followers have certainly proved that the traditions of the Roman municipia had never totally disappeared, but they took no account of the village community period which the barbarians lived through before they had any cities. The fact is that whenever mankind made a new start in civilization, in Greece, Rome or Middle Europe, it passed through the same stages: the tribe, the village community, the free city, the state, each one naturally evolving out of the preceding stage. Of course, the experience of each preceding civilization was never lost. Greece itself influenced by Eastern civilizations influenced Rome, and Rome influenced our civilization, but each of them begin from the same beginning, the tribe, and just as we cannot say that our states are continuations of the Roman state, so also can we not say that the medieval cities of Europe including Scandinavia and Russia were a continuation of the Roman cities. They were a continuation of the barbarian village community, influenced to a certain extent by the traditions of the Roman towns. No period of history could better illustrate the constructive powers of the popular masses than the 10th and 11th centuries, when the fortified villages and marketplaces, representing so many others amidst the feudal forests, began to free themselves from their lord's yoke, and slowly elaborated the future city organization. But unhappily this is a period about which historical information is especially scarce. We know their results, but little has reached us about the means by which they were achieved. Under the protection of their walls, the city's folkmotes, either quite independent or led by the chief noble or merchant families, conquered and maintained the right of electing the military defensor and supreme judge of the town, or at least of choosing between those who pretended to occupy this position. In Italy, the young communes were continually sending away their defensors or domini, fighting those who refused to go. The same went on in the East. In Bohemia, rich and poor alike (Bohemica gentis magni et porvi, nobles et ignobiles) took part in the election. M. Kovalevsky, Modern Customs and Ancient Laws of Russia (Ilchester Lectures, London, 1891, Lecture 4). While the Viek folkmotes of the Russian cities regularly elected their dukes, always from the same Rurik family, covenanted with them and sent the knyaz away if he had provoked discontent. A considerable amount of research had to be done before this character of the so-called Udielny period was properly established by the works of Bielayev (Tales from Russian History), Kostomarov (The Beginnings of Autocracy in Russia), and especially Professor Sergeyevich (The Viek and the Prince). The English reader may find some information about this period in the just named work of M. Kovalevsky in Rambo's History of Russia, and a short summary in the article Russia of the last edition of Chambers' Encyclopedia. Close footnote. At the same time, in most cities of Western and Southern Europe, the tendency was to take for defensor a bishop whom the city had elected itself, and so many bishops took the lead in protecting the immunities of the towns and in defending their liberties that numbers of them were considered after their death as saints and special patrons of different cities. Saint Ulthered of Winchester, Saint Ulrich of Augsburg, St. Wolfgang of Ratisbon, St. Heribert of Cologne, St. Adalbert of Prague, and so on, as well as many abbots and monks, became so many city saints for having acted in defense of popular rights. Open footnote. Ferrari, Histoire des Révolutions d'Italie, first, 257. Calzen, Die Deutschenstadt im Mittelalter, BD, first, open bracket, Hall, 1891. Close footnote. And under the new defences, whether laic or clerical, the citizens conquered full self-jurisdiction and self-administration for their folk modes. Open footnote. See the excellent remarks of Mr. G. L. Gum as regards the folkmote of London. Open bracket. The literature of local institutions. London, 1886, page 76. Close bracket. It must, however, be remarked that in royal cities the folkmote never attained the independence which is assumed elsewhere. It is even certain that Moscow and Paris were chosen by the kings and the church as the cradles of the future royal authority in the state, because they did not possess the tradition of folkmote accustomed to act as sovereign in all matters. Close footnote. The whole progress of liberation progressed by a series of imperceptible acts of devotion to the common cause, accomplished by men who came out of the masses, by unknown heroes whose very names have not been preserved by history. The wonderful movement of the God's peace (open bracket) Trugade, close bracket, by which the popular masses endeavoured to put a limit to the endless family feuds of the nobles' families, was born in the young towns, the bishops and the citizens trying to extend to the nobles the peace they had established within their town walls. Open footnote. A. Lucier, Les Communes Françaises, also Clucon, Geschichte des Gottesfrieden, 1857, L. Semichon, open bracket, La Paix et la Trêve de Dieu, 2 volumes, Paris, 1869, close bracket, has tried to represent the communal movement as issued from that institution. In reality, the Trugade, like the League started under Louis le Gros for the defense against both the robberies of the nobles and the Norman invasions, was a thoroughly popular movement. The only historian who mentions this last league, that is Vitalis, describes it as a popular community. Open bracket, Considération sur l'histoire de France, in volume 4 of Auguste Thierry's œuvre, Paris, 1868, page 191, and note, close bracket. Close footnote. Already at that period, the commercial cities of Italy, and especially Amalfi, open bracket, which had its elected consuls since 844 and frequently changed its judges in the 10th century, close bracket, open footnote, Ferrari, first, 152, 263, etc., close footnote, worked out the customary maritime and commercial law, which later on became a model for all Europe. Ravenna elaborated its craft organization, and Milan, which had made its first revolution in 980, became a great center of commerce, its trade enjoying a full independence since the 11th century. Open footnote. Parents, Histoire de Florence, first, 188, Ferrari, LC, first, 283, close footnote. So also Bruges and Ghent, so also several cities of France in which the Mall or Forum had become a quite independent institution. Open footnote. Auguste Thierry, Essai sur l'histoire du tiers-état, Paris, 1875, page 414, note, close footnote. And already during that period began the work of artistic decoration of the towns by works of architecture which we still admire and which loudly testify of the intellectual movement of the times. The basilicae were then renewed in almost all the universe, Raoul Gleber wrote in his chronicle, and some of the finest monuments of medieval architecture date from that period. The wonderful old church of Bremen was built in the 9th century, St. Mark of Venice was finished in 1071, and the beautiful Dome of Pisa in 1063. In fact, the intellectual movement, which has been described as the 12th century Renaissance, open footnote, F. Roquin, La Renaissance au XIIe siècle, in Études sur l'histoire de France, Paris, 1875, pages 55 to 117, close footnote, and the 12th century rationalism, the precursor of the reform, open footnote, and Kostomarov, the rationalist of the 12th century, in his monographies and researches, open bracket, Russian, close bracket, close footnote, date from that period when most cities were still simple agglomerations of small village communities enclosed by walls. However, another element, besides the village community principle, was required to give to these growing centers of liberty and enlightenment the unity of thought and action, and the powers of initiative which made their force in the 12th and 13th centuries. With the growing diversity of occupation, craft and arts, and with the growing commerce in distant lands, some new form of union was required, and this necessary new element was supplied by the guilds. Volumes and volumes have been written about these unions, which under